Hey, small business people and lovers of the good stories in general. Welcome to episode 26 of Small Business War Stories, a part of the Soul of America tour. This is when I was in St. Louis, Missouri, and I stopped by St. Louis and I spoke to John Matthews. And John is one of the founders of Pappys Smokehouse. Now, Pappys Smokehouse has been rated by the Food Network as the #1 ribs in the country. And I can attest after trying them after the taping of this podcast that is damn well deserved. They make amazing, amazing ribs. And they are an institution in St. Louis. They're very well located right there next to downtown. And I had a really good time talking to John and hearing his story about how him and his brother started participating in local competitions for the weekend, just doing different barbecue shows, and then going to a show called Memphis in May, which is a big deal, and they did very, very well. It also cleared up some confusions for me. I thought that St. Louis BBQ was a thing, but it turns out St. Louis ribs is a cut that is pretty much spoken of everywhere but St. Louis, which is, he explains what that means and what that is, but what they do is Memphis-style barbecue, and they are very good at it. So I look forward to you hearing the story of how they turned this, basically what was a hobby, into a thriving enterprise that is becoming an icon in the city of St. Louis. This episode is a part of the Soul of America tour, which means that my puppy Muddy Waggers and I were in a car, and we showed up there in person, like every episode of Small Business War Stories, and it is brought to you by Badger Mapping. The reason why that's important is because Badger was the app that I used to get around during the Soul of America tour. They are an app for field salespeople, and it makes it easy for reps to manage their territory. If you ever have to go from place to place, this is a great app to try out. You can tell them that you found them on Small Business War Stories, and they will give you 2 free months. Again, that is Badger Mapping. And this episode is also brought to you by Tecovas Boots, Tecovas boots. They're my favorite boots. I wore them every day of the Soul of America tour. I am wearing them right now, and I wear them out when I play my music live. They're very comfortable. I get lots of compliments on them. And the real kicker for them is that they cost a lot less than the boots you would buy at a store because they go direct to consumer and they bypassed the dealers. So you can check them out at tecovasboots.com, Tecovas boots.com. And the episode is also brought to you by Impact Crates. Impact Crates are dog crates. The crate that I use during the Soul of America tour for Muddy Waggers is one of their crates, and it's very, very well made of aluminum, very easy to carry. And again, you can check them out at Impact Crates. And if you order a crate from them and use code MUDDY20, MUDDY20, you get 20% off. And like every episode of Small Business War Stories, this one is brought to you by Proven. And the reason it's brought to you by Proven is because I started the company. So I figured we would also sponsor the podcast. And we are a leading small business hiring tool, and small business is a key there. We are a software tool, but we also talk to you. So if you ever need help with your hiring and figuring out how do I word this ad, where do I put it to, where do I distribute it to, how do I do that, we are there for you. So we work directly with thousands of small businesses nationwide. We would love to work with you. We have a free trial. You can check us out at proven.com, Proven.com. And without further ado, here's episode 26 of Small Business War Stories with John Matthews of Pappys Smokehouse in St. Louis, Missouri. Small Business War Stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes. And we are live here with Small Business War Stories. I'm here in beautiful St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm sitting here with John Matthews. And John, you are the founder of Pappys Smokehouse. Thank you so much for having me here.
Good to have you here. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. So thank you. So today we're going to talk about the St. Louis BBQ tradition. So St. Louis is a town with a very rich history of food, of music, of arts, and a big part of that is the St. Louis BBQ. So I want to hear from you. Tell me more about Pappys. How is it that you got started here, and what made you do this?
My partner and I are local St. Louis boys.
Okay.
Grew up around here, had a good time.
Yeah.
We got into the competition barbecue thing with the amateur stuff, smaller stuff, local festivals. We did relatively well, and we actually got to a point where we graduated to what I call the major leagues. I'm talking the American Royal in Kansas City.
So tell me more about that. What is the? I don't know anything about barbecue contests. What do those consist of?
Well, there's local competitions, and you can go into different categories. You can do brisket, you can do ribs, you can do whole hog, you can do chicken, and I mean the list can go on and on as far as what kind of categories somebody's going to have. But what we got into specifically was the ribs.
Okay.
And when we actually got to a point where we were invited to the American Royal and then Memphis in May, we really got into the Memphis style barbecue, which is what we serve here.
Okay. What does that mean? What is Memphis style barbecue?
Memphis style means that everything is dry rubbed and indirectly smoked. There's no sauce on anything until you put it on there.
Okay.
And the way we prepare our meats, the meat is good just the way it is. It doesn't really require sauce, but if you have a palate for that, it's available.
Got it. Okay. Do you eat your? Is it one of those things that if you put sauce on it, it's like putting ketchup on your sushi kind of thing? Or
No.
It's
not that bad. Not that bad.
Okay, got you. So. Tell me a little bit more about the history of barbecue in the town of St. Louis.
St. Louis is a barbecue town, and I'm 51 years old, so I've been here my whole life. It's going to be an open pit in your backyard. It's going to be a cut of meat called a pork steak, which is the same cut that we use for our pulled pork. You'll hear people call it a pork butt. It's actually a pork shoulder roast called a Boston blade roast. And it's pretty much unheard of when you get beyond 100 miles radius of St. Louis. If you go and ask for a butcher in St. Louis for a pork steak, they'll look at you like a cow looking at a new gate. They don't know what you're talking about. But here in St. Louis, that's the biggest aspect of St. Louis barbecue, as well as spare ribs.
Okay.
And you'll see St. Louis barbecue throughout the country. And where's the only place you don't see St. Louis barbecue? Is St. Louis.
Oh, interesting.
So St. Louis ribs are basically a cut. It's the spare ribs with the ends of the ribs trimmed so they're all the same length. That's where you get rib tips from.
Interesting. So is that pork ribs or
pork
ribs?
Pork ribs.
Pork ribs. Okay. So that's what people know as St. Louis.
That's what people nationwide know as St. Louis barbecue is those ribs.
But you cannot find it in St. Louis.
Not so much.
Okay.
Not so much. It's more of a sale point for that cut of meat.
Interesting.
So a spare rib with the ends trimmed off, that's a St. Louis style rib.
Okay. Got it. And so what you do here is Memphis style barbecue.
Correct. We use a loin back rib, so it's coming closer to the top of the back of the pig.
Okay.
They're meatier, and it's a little bit bigger cut of a baby back. It's a very expensive cut of the rib, but once you try it, you'll say, yeah, I can see why you use those.
Got you. So tell me about the process you were talking about early on. You were doing the amateur circuit with competitions. What's that process from starting with your brother and saying, hey, it'd be cool to do this next weekend, all the way up to national competitions and having
we had fun doing it, which was the important thing. And then we realized in the beginning, especially when you're doing stuff like brisket, which takes 12 to 14 hours.
Right. I live in Austin. I know all about that.
Sure, Texas big on brisket and sausage.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny because we just got into it and got to know more and more people. We had fun doing it, and we realized, hey, if we're going to do well at this was really good, we need to write down exactly what the hell we're doing, because you get something that takes 14 hours to cook, a few beers can go down, and then, wait a minute, what do we do? How do we do? So we actually started really taking care of our preparation progress and process and documenting it, making it realize that, okay, this needs to be duplicated over and over again after we get it tweaked to a point. So then once we got into, we won first place in whole hog in Memphis in May, third place in ribs one year, and unfortunately a thing called life got in the way, and we got out of it for a while.
Okay. And Tell me more about that. What happened?
Changed jobs. had different change of jobs, schedules changed, and we just couldn't accommodate the schedule of that. But we, luckily, we were having a conversation.
Okay, so tell me more. How long ago did you have to stop, and how did you pick it up again? And how long did you stop for?
Well, we stopped for about 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
And we had my partner and I met up after work, having a couple beers, complaining about our respective day at work.
Yeah.
And thank goodness the conversation evolved to, dude, what about the barbecue? I bet we could sell that. And that is the premise of how Pappy started.
Cool. How long ago was that?
9 years, 1 month, and 26 days ago.
There you go. Now that you're counting.
Right.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what's changed from 9 years ago to today? How has your business evolved? How are you doing things differently today than you did back then?
Well, just growth. Growth has been our biggest struggle.
Okay.
More employees, cook more food. For the listeners, they can't see the 5 smokers that are sitting out on the patio here.
Yeah, they're big.
We started with one of those.
Wow. How many? 6 of them?
There's 6 plus 2 more on trailers if we need them.
Wow.
So growth has been our biggest problem, which is a great problem to have.
So how have you managed that? I mean, can you tell me about a specific challenge that you encountered with growth, and then how did you address that?
One of the best things I can recommend for anybody: hire very good, intelligent people, compensate them well, and take care of them, because they are going to be the ones that take care of your customers.
That makes
There's
sense.
a lot of misconception in the hospitality industry that your customer is your biggest asset. We have found that our staff is our biggest asset.
Okay.
They are the one that do the heavy lifting every day.
Tell me about your hiring process. So how do you find these people? How do you vet them? How do you make sure they're going to fit your culture?
For the most part, it's word of mouth. Our staff will recommend a friend of theirs, and that is an interesting process, because pretty much guarantees that whoever somebody brings in isn't going to be a slacker, because then they're putting their own name on the line, saying, "Hey, we
want to be associated with this."
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And it's worked out relatively well. And we're in very close proximity to St. Louis University. We've got quite a few students and we get that they're going to be here seasonally, but it's a great spot for them. They enjoy it. It's good money.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, there's something probably really cool and romantic about working at a barbecue joint for them too, right?
It's been remarkable. It's we started off with my partner and 3 employees. There were 5 of us. Counting my catering staff, I had 67 paychecks went out last Friday.
Wow, that's crazy. And that's up. Initially, it was just you and your brother.
Well, a brother from another, my partner, and with 3 employees.
Okay.
There was 5 of us when we opened, and the space that we're sitting here right now is our second expansion. We've done a third, but we started off very small, and we've been lucky to just systematically grow.
Was it in the same location or
yes.
somewhere else? Okay, so you've kind of added on to it.
Just taking over more parcels of the building.
Very cool, very cool. What's that process been like? How do you manage the construction while keeping the business and the quality and everything?
Well, that's kind of an ironic thing, because my background comes from residential construction and real estate.
Okay.
So when we built Pappy's, I was the general contractor for it.
So that
I actually framed these walls that you're sitting around.
That is really cool. That's gotta be. So I was talking to Seth Lee Jones in Tulsa, Oklahoma a few days ago, and he plays music with the guitars that he makes. So there's
very
gotta be
cool.
a little bit of that.
It's
sort of
blood, sweat, and tears, no lie.
Yeah, that's great. So you probably walk in here and you know what went into making this place happen.
Right.
That is awesome. That's awesome. What are some of the oddest, wackiest things? I'm sure you see a lot of characters come through here. You sell great food, great drink. I'm sure some interesting stuff happens.
We've had Pauly Shore came in one morning.
Yeah.
Came in with his folks, and I chatted with him for a couple minutes. He went into the bathroom.
Okay.
Came back with sunglasses on. I think he was stoned to the bejesus,
Got
but
it.
he enjoyed the grub.
I mean, if you're gonna go anywhere when you're stoned out of your mind, this is probably not a bad place to go.
Right,
See
and
a lot of risks.
wow, one of the nicest people I ever sat down and talked to, and I talked to him one-on-one for 40 minutes here, was Henry Winkler, the Fonz.
Oh, cool.
What a very regular, nice guy.
Awesome.
He was fun.
Awesome.
And we've had multiple sports figures here, and we fed the band Muse when they were touring.
Oh, cool.
We fed Lady Gaga and her crew when they were in town. So, yeah, it's been interesting.
That's awesome. So you've kind of built this name in the community as a place, a destination. Right?
Absolutely.
That's awesome. And you probably sell merchandise, anything for that.
You got to have swag.
Exactly. So how do you, other than having like this brand, do you do any advertising? How do you find your customers? This is a lot of our audience is small business people.
Sure.
And that's a big challenge for a lot of people. How do you think about that?
We really don't do any print, radio, or television advertising. Our advertising is done with, ironically, social media,
Okay.
and people like yourself that do podcasts that come out and say, hey, here's a really cool little diamond in the rough that nobody would know about unless you knew it was here. And we have grown so much. We do all of our, we don't have a marketing budget.
Okay.
We do our marketing through charitable contributions.
Oh, tell me more about that.
So if fundraisers for different events,
Yeah.
St. Louis City firefighter gets injured and they're having a fundraiser, we're more than happy to help out with that.
Got it.
When we had the problems in Ferguson and they had FBI and law enforcement all over the country, we fed a group of those guys one day.
Wow.
So it's by doing little things that, touches people's hearts in a time of need. That's primarily how we do our advertising.
And that's something that makes you feel like you're a part of the community, right? And
Absolutely.
probably makes the community feel like you're a part of them too.
Right,
So it kind of
exactly.
feeds itself. Cool. Do you dovetail the things you do on the charitable front with what you do with social media, or are those two separate kind of channels?
No, that's pretty separate.
Okay.
We wouldn't want to exploit the fact that we're trying to be good, good citizens or good business people in the society. It's, it has its own merit if we keep it on the down low.
That makes sense. So tell me more about your social media strategy. So you're saying you do things on Instagram and Facebook? Or?
Yeah, I actually have somebody that does that for me now.
Okay.
I'm a whopping 51. I don't two-finger text. I have a few people that do that take care of all that for me, and they do a good job.
Very cool. And how do they think about it? What is the directive that you give them? Because I think this is a big challenge for a lot of small business people, is how do you manage all this kind of social messaging out there? So what is the directive that you give them to make sure that the message they're putting out there is consistent with your message is?
I pretty much give them, because they're very creative. We have a dedicated staff that has their heart and soul into this.
Okay.
I pretty well let them have free range with that. They'll come to me with questions as far as something's a little off or a little bit, and I can steer them a little bit. For the most part, they've got it.
Okay, that's awesome. Do you have like an internal messaging document? Do you have like your principles outlined somewhere, or is it something that gets passed on word of mouth from the staff? Because as you started, you said you had 60 employees now?
Right.
So that starts to become a lot of people, and as you bring more people on, how do you make sure that the message and the culture gets spread evenly?
That's going to be determined by a new employee's interaction with existing employees.
Okay.
And what you learn at that point is that everybody helps everybody else out.
Yeah.
And there are no slackers.
Okay.
And that pretty much is the vibe around here.
Cool. So has there been a time, I'm sure, in the past 10 years where you had somebody who was otherwise a good employee that maybe wasn't a cultural fit with your values and your principles, and how did you handle that?
There's people that doesn't work.
Right.
It happens. We're somewhat selective to the point, and again, we're lucky to the point that a lot of our employees are referrals.
Right.
So our staff kind of reaches out and go, hey, this guy would do a great job, or this guy would do a great job.
Sure.
It's not really a big issue. It happens occasionally.
And how do you handle it when you do that? I think it's another big issue that a lot of small business owners grapple with, is how do you manage those conflicts?
When you have a situation like that, legally, you can, and this sounds kind of coarse or rough, but the first 3 months, you can pretty much let somebody go for whatever reason you deem fit.
Okay.
And, you just explain to them, hey, this isn't working out. Sorry.
Yeah.
If we can give them a little severance package and say, hey, good luck, I'm down the line with your journey through life.
Sure.
Good luck.
And for the most part, you're able to see these issues within the first 3 months?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Cool. So
they'll surface itself real quickly.
Got you. Very cool. So what would you say is the number one lesson or piece of advice that you have for small business folks who are listening to the show that you've learned in your journey?
I will go back to, it'll be twofold. Go back to what I mentioned earlier. Hire good people.
Yeah.
Specifically management, intelligent people, compensate them well, and take care of them.
Okay.
And the other half to that is show by good example to all your staff. These people, I've got 6 people working in the kitchen right now, and they all know that if they need help at any given point with anything, to stop me and ask me, and I will stop and help them. Yeah. I wouldn't ask them to do anything I wouldn't do myself, because in the beginning, I had to do everything myself.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, I've done every job in my company at some point. So
exactly.
I hear you. Very cool. Let's talk about St. Louis a little bit. So today is my first time in St. Louis.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. What's it like to do business here? So what's it like? What's your interaction with other members of the business community, with maybe the city of St. Louis? What are the great things and maybe some of the challenges of doing business here?
I'm born and raised here. I love this town. It's a wonderful place. It's very friendly people. We're fortunate enough that one of my jobs here is that we entertain probably 30 to 40% of our customers that come in are out-of-town tourists.
Okay.
So we're almost kind of an ambassador for the city. As far as working with the city itself, they've got a very nice small business assistance program where they'll come in and you come in and go, here's what I want to do, help me. I've never done this before. And in 10 years, I can't tell you how many times I've said, I don't know how to do this. I've never done this before.
So what's that process? You go in there and what do they do?
It's just they help you out with your licensing, issuing permits, guiding you here. You want to talk to this office regarding this office regarding signage. Here's where our liquor office is. Here's who you need to talk to for this. And the city's been very helpful for getting us going, as well as business owners in the area that we got to know. We could get feedback off them from their experiences. And now that we've somewhat established ourselves, we're happy to do the same for people that are just starting out.
Cool. So can you give me an example of a time when you reached out to somebody else in the community, and how did that work?
Joy Gerdnick owns a wonderful place called The Fountain on Locust.
Okay.
When we first started getting established as far as understanding our area and our market, she was a wonderful resource to walk up and say, hey, what is this area of the city like, or where are we when we're over here? What time of the day are you busy? What kind of crowds can we expect?
Cool.
She was instrumental when we first got up and going. And there's several businesses are like that. And right now, 2 doors down the street, there's a gentleman starting a microbrewery called Center Ice Brewing Company.
Okay.
And he's come up and said, dude, how do I do this? Dude, how do I do this? And we help each other out,
That's awesome. So it takes a village, and you ultimately see other people's success as your own success,
Sure.
as opposed to, competition, quote unquote.
Correct.
That's great. That's awesome.
A high tide floats all ships.
I love that. Where do you see your business going in the next 10 years? You mentioned that in the last 10 years or 9 years, you've done a couple of expansions.
We've done a couple of expansions here. We have 3 other barbecue restaurants in the city. They're not called Pappys.
Okay. Why that choice?
Multiple reasons, but the biggest reason is going to be because this is a 1 in 10,000 shot of opening a restaurant. On weekends, we have lines that are an hour wait, and that's unheard of.
Wow.
I mean, it's if you're from St. Louis, you'll understand what I say when it's a bona fide Albert Pujols grand slam in the bottom of the ninth.
Okay.
Again, it wouldn't happen without a staff that genuinely cared. The other reason is because we had no idea when we opened our newer stores how to duplicate this. And I wanted to stay away from, in the aspect, especially with social media and people reviewing restaurants, I didn't want them to say, well, the second one's not quite as good as the first one, and they don't do this right. And I wanted to avoid that.
Got it. So you want to have like one, flagship store.
The
and then
flagship.
What are the names of the other ones?
We have Adam's Smokehouse.
Okay.
And Bogart's Smokehouse.
Okay.
And then most recently is Daily Smokehouse.
And who are Adam, Bogart, and Daily?
Bogart was a name brought up by our pitmaster, and I have the whole Bogart. I have a feeling that has to do with something he did a lot in college.
Yeah.
And Adams is named after one of our employees who passed away from a terminal blood illness suddenly.
Okay.
And it was devastating. It was one of the few days minus holidays that we closed the entire restaurant down for his funeral.
Wow.
But it's named in tribute to him. And Daly's is named after our pitmaster Skip's maternal grandfather.
Okay.
Papa Joe Daly was a judge down in Arkansas, and
Cool.
when we were putting together the whole idea, we were sitting around a table, and he said, well, I wouldn't mind if I could. Papa Joe Daly was the one that got him started in his smokehouse down in Arkansas and got him started with it, and we said there was no question that was the right answer.
That is so cool. So the interesting thing about that when you share is that to me it lands like each one is its own has the image of its own small business versus like Pappy's is a chain.
Correct. They know we're associated, but each of the other restaurants has they do a little tweak to their barbecue, and they might have a dish that we don't have.
Sure.
Say tri-tip, or another one has pastrami, another one has a house-made salami. So a lot of the dishes are the same. Some are a little different, and some are very unique to that store.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Is there anything else you want our audience to know about your business? Where can people find you? What are your social media handles, your website, everything?
PappysSmokehouse.com.
Okay, that's Pappys Smokehouse, so two S's.
Two S's in the middle.
Yep.
You can just Google Best Barbecue St. Louis. It'll come in there right close to the top.
Nice.
If you can check on Yelp and TripAdvisor, where Pappy's actually has double the amount of any restaurant out of 2,800 restaurants, and
Wow.
says double the amount of reviews. And the one that's second to that is Bogart's.
Amazing. I can't wait to try this barbecue right after we get done here.
I'm looking forward to trying it.
That is awesome. Well, thank you so much, John, for taking the time to sit down with me and share your story with the Small Business War Stories audience.
Appreciate you coming in, and
Thank you so much.
Best of luck to all you guys out there listening, trying to get up and rolling, doing your thing. Been very blessed, and hope you are as well.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Small Business War Stories. If you enjoy the show, share it with a friend, or you can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or on our blog at blog.proven.com. If you have an idea for us, we'd love to hear it. Please email us at podcast@proven.com. See you next time. Small Business War Stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes.